if you are just joining us. I'm Jason Koo, Executive Director of Brooklyn Poets. We are waiting for the attendees to shuffle in the digital door, and we'll get started maybe in about 3 or 4 minutes, depending on, it seems like we've got our crowd here. I'm going to introduce Joel Whitney from BPL. If you want to say anything, Joel.
Well, it looks like, okay, yeah, I guess they're filtering in slowly today. So if we're starting, welcome everyone. Cheers, bottoms up. Thanks for being with us. I work on the Brooklyn Public Library's Arts and Culture team. It's called BPL Presents. And it's always a pleasure to be co-presenting with Jason, and especially today with Hafizah, Ricardo Alberto Maldonado, and Tarfia Faizullah. And just a big part of our mission to present poetry with Jason's great team and the major force that Brooklyn Poets has become in poetry here on the East Coast and in the country. I'm going to turn it back over to Jason pretty quickly, but I just wanted to remind you that, in these strange times on Zoom, normally we'd be in our auditorium at Grand Army Plaza welcoming these poems to our stage. And, libraries are remaking ourselves as democratic spaces for citizenship, literacy, poetry, shelter, debate. And we have poetry events like this throughout the year, but also classes and workshops and everything in between. And we love for you all to keep in touch with us. Our handles on social are BPL Presents. My colleague Binyam is
This meeting is being recorded.
Dropping those in the chat. But thanks again for being here, and especially those of you who were excited enough by these poets to change out of your pajamas, as I did.
The recording has stopped.
The recording has stopped. I'm going to turn it back over to the great Jason Koo, the man and the brain and the heart behind Brooklyn Poets. But please welcome him with your snaps and claps and shooting emojis and everything else. And thanks for being here.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Wow, you can see I know how to do my job. This meeting is being recorded. It's also actually, Joel, do you want to quickly say that something about the streaming?
Yeah, we're streaming this to our Facebook page, which, as I say, is at BPL Presents, which means if you want to watch it again later, those of you who might not be here yet, you can see it on the Facebook page at BPL Presents.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to just make a few announcements to give people a little bit more time to settle in, since it's only 7:04. If you've joined us already, thank you for coming. We're glad that you're here. If you're joining us from Texas, we are thinking about you and hoping you are well. Tarfia is joining us from Texas, so I've been sort of keeping abreast of what's happening through her. And obviously through following the news, it's definitely not a good situation down there, but we hear the power is coming back slowly but surely, and that seems to be a good sign. Again, if you don't know me, I'm Jason Koo, Executive Director of Brooklyn Poets. I'd like to introduce my staff before I make a couple of announcements. Our Community Director, Kendall Thomas, who's going to be working on this big alumni project we are doing over the next year in advance of our 10th anniversary, which will be in 2022, which also hopefully we will be able to celebrate in person. We will see. Lila Rudeshauser, one of our bridge editors, Jay Eason, our office manager, who has put together our poem document tonight that we are going to screen share while the readers read. Emily Blair, web designer and web manager, who does all of our beautiful design work. Josephine Blair, events manager, and her cat. What's your cat's name, Joe?
She named herself. Her name is Loca, and it works. She just knocked over. I'm unmuted. He's like screaming fuck. She just knocked over Javier's mate while he was in the middle of writing. So okay. I'm very protecting her.
Welcome to Loca as well. Renee Kerr, development manager. Justin Mackey, our web editor, who always works on our Poet of the Week at the start of every week. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have read those features. Tadika Chandran, our new intern. And Roseanne Gold is here, one of our board directors. Binyam and Manny are here from BPL. I'm not sure if they're here or just here in spirit, but they have been working on live streaming this event. There's Binyam. So thanks to all of our staff at Brooklyn Poets and BPL for joining us for this event and all the hard work that you do to put these events together. We've been doing these reading series events and all of our events virtually since the start of the pandemic last year. And we appreciate all of you guests that have continued to attend these virtually. We didn't know how it was going to go at first. We weren't sure if nobody was going to show up. I think that was true for all of these orgs that do this kind of work throughout the world, but we've been heartened to see that attendance often is even greater than it would be in person, and that's pretty cool. And what's especially cool is we get a lot of attendees from outside of New York City that could not attend before for obvious physical, logistical reasons. So I'm going to say a couple things about the reading series, and then I think we will begin. So the Brooklyn Poets Reading Series usually has 6 events per year. Last year we had to cancel one at the start of the pandemic, but it's always been 6 events per year. We try to do it roughly bi-monthly. The series always features 3 poets with at least one from Brooklyn. For this event, we have 2, which is nice. And Tarfia, the third, who lives in Texas now, was born in Brooklyn, so we think of her as a Brooklyn poet as well. And the series deliberately focuses on pairing emerging poets with more established mid-career poets, and focuses on featuring poets that have traditionally been underrepresented and underserved, both in the literary community and the country as a whole. So we have been doing that since the start of Brooklyn Poets in 2012. And this is our first reading of 2021. We're excited to have these 3 poets with us tonight. So I'm going to begin by introducing Ricardo, and the way these introductions are going to work, basically, I'm going to introduce them by telling you a little bit about their work, which is a sort of standard bio fare at the beginning, just so if you don't know anything about them, you can learn about them. And then I'll be sharing some personal background that has been drawn from their Poet of the Week interviews. So you get to know them a little bit as a person, and a lot of these introductions draw from their experiences in Brooklyn, because we also like to celebrate the borough that this organization tries to honor through everything that it does. And also, hopefully, the intros will pique your interest in reading the interviews with the poets and checking out the feature poems. Ricky is the feature poet this week at Brooklyn Poets, so I encourage you to check out his feature after the reading. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Ricky, and then we will begin. And if you have any, actually, before I do that, I forgot that Renee has to make an announcement about photos. So Renee, if you'd love to do that, that would be great, and then we can get started.
Yes, since all of our things are digital now, our event gallery gets kind of boring with like a bunch of like Zoom screenshots. So we would love it if you could take like a selfie, a picture of your setup, do like a thirst trap, whatever you're feeling. We just want to see you living your life and taking part in our events. You can tag at Brooklyn Poets on Instagram or Twitter in them. If you post it in your story and tag us, we'll reshare it and you'll be like minorly famous. It'll be really cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Yeah, in fact, everyone if you take, I mean, it looks like Ricky just took one. Take a selfie right now if you can. Post on Instagram. We will share it or send it to me at ku@brooklynpoets.org. We have been slowly stockpiling an archive of charming, awkward selfies through all these virtual events, and they're much more interesting than the screenshots, which I don't think anyone needs to see another one of, especially me. So if you would do us a solid and send us some selfies, that would be great. Also, if you would love to like to share your love for these poets in the chat, we heartily encourage you to do that. Some people have already started to do that. One tip to set your chat setting to panelists and attendees, because it is set to panelists by default. Not sure why. Maybe it's a setting thing that I need to take care of, but I've never been able to figure it out. So make sure to send your chat to panelists and attendees. At the end of the reading, we will have a Q&A of about 20 minutes. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll be a little longer, a little shorter, depending on how many questions we have. And we will invite you then to send your questions to the Q&A part of this rather than the chat, because we might not see it in the chat. Yes, thank you for that, adding that, Binyam, to the chat. Okay, I'm going to start by introducing our first reader. Ricardo Alberto Maldonado was born and raised in Puerto Rico. He is the co-editor of Puerto Rico en mi Corazón and the translator of Dina Piera de Donato's Collaterales. His first collection of poems, The Life Assignment, published by Four Way Books last year, was one of Remezcla's 2020's best books by Latine or Latin American authors. Recipient of fellowships from the New York Foundation for the Arts, Queer Arts Mentorship, and Cantamundo, he serves as the 92nd Street Y Unterberg Poetry Center's managing director. He lives in Bed-Stuy. Brooklyn, he says, called long before I moved. My mother, Victoria, was born at the Swedish hospital at Sterling and Rogers, but then moved at 5 with her family to San Juan, where she met my father later on. I can read myself here. I find myself. Some of the reasons why Brooklyn sustains him. His neighbor, Mrs. Robinson, who greets him every morning with, "Hi, Mr. Maldonado," and sings Motown. Chatting in English and Spanish about TV with his neighbor, Lawana. His neighborhood pizza shop. Being greeted by his pharmacist. The 3 windows his cat Marcus looks out of. All the places, he says, we feel safe at because they read us and welcomed us are a home. Sadly, though, he does miss the Dominican and Salvadoran restaurants where he used to live in Washington Heights. He says he'd rather starve than walk into gentrifying tacos 7 blocks away. One of his fondest memories of in Brooklyn was running the Empire reading series for 4 years at Art Cafe and Bar with Hafizah. All the poems he learned to write there where he found his own words with and within the words of others. He remembers setting up the room before readings, the kindness of Jimmy and Brianna, the owners, the work of bartenders among poems. I miss all of this. And the long chats about the future they all wanted to see for themselves after the readings. Sometimes when I miss home, he says, I sit on the benches by Eastern Parkway. The sound of cars driving past in intervals reminds me of the seashore back home. I have to say, Ricky is a poet because I have never thought of a seashore listening to the traffic on Eastern Parkway. So I find that very beautiful. Give a warm virtual welcome to Ricardo Alberto Maldonado.
Hello, everyone. Hello from Bed-Stuy. Hello, all love people on. Oh, we're sharing. I forgot. Hi, everyone. Nicole, Tommy, Angeli. My mom is watching from Puerto Rico, and I think with my sister. But I want to dedicate this to Malcolm and Angeli, friends whom I miss and I haven't seen in quite some time, and to Leslie, to all of you. I will be reading poems in Spanish and in English, and I sort of arranged it chronologically through my book. You may hear a sound alarm in the background, a car alarm in the background, but we'll figure it out. I give you my heart, os doy mi corazón. I find myself on my feet with 15 leaves. Everything carries its own weight, its own light on the walls. I woke up to slaughter, my heart opening to the cemeteries of moon, the parasites, the drizzle, the mud crowning the undergrowth with immense sadness. I knew death when I dressed in my uniform. I found the index of solitude, my country in its legal jargon, its piety, its fiction. Yes, it loves me really. I give my blood as the blood of old fish. Me encuentro de pie con 15 hojas. Brilla todo en los muros. Desperté en su sacrificio. Mi corazón se abría entre cementerios de luna. Los parásitos, la llovizna, el lodo coronando la maleza con mustios grandes. Supe de mi muerte al vestir de uniforme. Encontré el índice de soledad, mi país en su jerga legal, su piedad, su ficción. Sí, me quiere de verdad. Doy mi sangre como la sangre de todos los peces. The next 2 poems are sort of related to each other. I'm just going to read them in English. And something I do have to say is that my mom corrected me after she read the Brooklyn Poets interview. She moved when she was 6, not 5. So or 5, not 6. So the number was wrong. So sorry, Mom. In defense of the life assignment, I started at the surface, feeling about my Faizullah jawbone my mother had given me as a weapon against austerity. 2 decades before my father had died, I was desperate under summers isosceles. A fragile machine descended with a yellowing haze on the city. Whom had I been then but the sediment inside that thing I named Ricardo Alberto? Blessed it he, blessed in the reddening of medical pins, blessed under fluorine yokes. I venerated my mother at Centro Medico, her prayer cards at midnight, the saffron of her blood tearing as it coursed, a thick mass on concrete inside coral. Mother, today it snows in another city besieged by comet tails. You breathed that day the sharp instrument of men on your heart. Waited, they waited. I remember the wings of your lung. It was midnight when I went in search of angels in the shoes of the sick near the gates of heaven. On the seventh day, we all take repose in the kingdom of the sick. Blessed are they, blessed the cold comfort of a wind rushing over teeth. Blessed the long corridors of heaven. Blessed the gelatin in refrigerators, the instant coffee. Blessed our sentence of silver of flowers. Blessed may it be. Blessed. I'm gonna keep going till I find Mi Mama Me Ama. All of these poems are with love for my mother, but about a fictional mother. Mi Mama Me Ama. I have a moon. I had 6 mothers in my poverty. Is this all I have for myself? I was born like everyone else in a house with one door. I have memories to revise. No doubt you'll find the expiration date. Mi Mama Me Ama. I laid waste to my health in the walls of her heart while regretting this analogy for the labor of a body. I had a house with 3 windows. I remembered her alone with her memories of youth. The deep-hearted course of one rough word turned judgment in my blood. It was mother. As for her, this is the truth. When she cries for her mother, I dismantle all walls to extract her with one word. It is mother. I learned her sacrifice and grace. I had one moon. Mother, teach me when to seek out. I'll note the expiration date. That's how I talked while my mother with fruit fed me. So the next poem borrows its title from, or troubles a title by Henry Cole. And there's a line from Elizabeth Bishop's The Monument, which was one of those first poems I really loved and can't still quite understand, right? Like I think the monument in itself is constantly transforming, and the more I read it, the more I don't see it. I, Ricardo, detached from the human Ricardo. In youth, they left me by onion roots to draft an inner life as reserved for this state. With a deep throbbing, I deviated. I feel from dignity and calm. Anxiety grabbed me with sciatica. Although I recited poems at a stone's throw inside the machine elevator. The clattering of the empire, its capital and arsenal of pain, it made for a rough odor. Now can you see the monument? I poured over the fuselage, going on in a gray suit toward roses. I, breathless, meanwhile, the air from the head itself, I breathe. Cayoro son las 5:27 in San Juan. They gifted me from previous life and illumination inside the chest. For those of you who are following the screen share, that's a. I just realized that I sent a previous version of the manuscript, so you will see a few edits. So I just have a few more. I'm gonna skip to the commodities market, which is a poem I find myself reading often. It's a list poem. The commodities market, where one finds poetry, one finds the Lord, God of epic, a golden instrument on our Lord's palm, God, the body, pelt of our Lord, red cap for red God, tree of the heavens, Remember Jose Daniel, the God we engraved on our desks. Christ of our Lord, Christ of our children, Lord's denominator in the Lord's arithmetic. A pair of children's scissors. God at our borders, the salt of our Lord, God's ocean of cotton, of sugar. A nickname for God, the Lord Elephant, Lord Mule, Lord's Acres, Hospital Lord, Texas for God, Alabama, God's Sea of Blue Tarps. Our Lord's November and August for our God, roses of God for the roses, clouds for the Lord. Will the gods disappear, their arms full of roses? The wall of our Lord in God's roses, Lord's wound flowering red. One heaven of fog clouding faces for a heaven of roses. A heaven for God, our Lord, in the darkness of numbers. Lord's icebox, Lord's cages for the children of God, an armful of roses for roses of God. God's labor, God's Wednesdays as labor, and the labor of God. I have two more poems, one of which is in this packet. I'm going to finish with it, but before that, I'm going to read something that's not in here. The poem I want to end with is called Lesionado. In the meantime, I'm going to read this poem. It's sort of like one of my newest poems. So I will be reading. Don't pay attention to the screen just yet. Had to use 6 words today. If you, America, were locust, owning, for example, your Brooklyn of absolute gift, reach safely for that charter of rights for the republic, its austerity measures, a charter of oversight, management, and economic stability would suggest we were subject to your dissertation as we were its readers. America, are you the president? The sea train in its abstract melancholy? Then forgive us if we lean toward the mystery inside. For example, our brethren called me Capricorn in Bushwick, Speak in Park Slope, suggested translation of my name, but that was in New Jersey. If I were to find one thing inside 6 walls, it would be Marcus, my boss's cat, a deadbolt making my home out of Thanatos, so I may hope to be its human reader. 2 weeks after Maria, I send a text, despite keeping no receipt, for $3. Oh, America, lay your immense weight over me. I alone in my room for us, I sing. I, America, whom you are holding now in hand. Book, forgive me everything. I've gotten up in my used sheets. America at 6 in the morning with a poem in mind. And now to end, Lesionado, a short poem in 2 languages. It would help if I could find it. I'm still, because I'm not doing a tour, right? I'm reading from my apartment. I still don't know the geography of my book as well as I should. So here we go. Lesionado. Maybe this will be a poem about power, reading, rereading, whatever shape the intelligence takes. Somewhere, somehow, the men, the state, somewhere seems to destroy. Only we should be beautiful and practical. Finding beauty will stand everywhere among 2 Victorias, my brothers and I. Among them, home for its noun, home for its soil. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I among them. Maybe this is a poem about power. Maybe this is a poem about love. Tal vez este sea un poema sobre el poder. Releyendo cualquier forma que la inteligencia pudiese tomar. De algún modo donde van hombres, el Estado de algún modo les parece destruir. Solo debemos ser hermosos y prácticos, encontrando que durará la belleza en todas partes, entre 2 victorias, mis hermanos y yo. Ese hogar como sustantivo, ese hogar en su barro, 1, 2, 3, 4 y yo entre ellos. Tal vez este sea un poema sobre el poder. Tal vez este sea un poema sobre el amor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ricky. That was beautiful. What a great way to start. I love that poem that wasn't in the packet. The one that was off script might have been my favorite one. Fantastic work. And thank you for mentioning Elizabeth Bishop's The Monument, which is, that was like an old friend came into the reading all of a sudden. And thanks also for reading a list poem. I just did that with some of my students. So I'm not sure any of them are attending this, but although Tarnica was a former student, she's done that poem. So you see, Tarnica, that real poets in the world also do the assignments that I give my classes. Okay, thanks very much, Ricky. Our next reader is Hafizah Jeter. Let me pull up my intro. Hafizah Jeter is an award-winning Nigerian-American poet, writer, and editor, and a literary agent at Janklow and Nesbitt. She is the author of the debut poetry collection Un-American, published by Wesleyan University Press last year, and longlisted for the 2021 Penn Open Book Award and nominated for a 2021 NAACP Image Award. Her poetry and prose have appeared in the New Yorker, Tin House, Boston Review, Yale Review, and Paris Review, among other publications. She lives in Ditmas Park. She says of Brooklyn, "I like the choice and the chances. It's a place where people come together. Here, there's a little bit of every place I've lived." In her walks around Brooklyn, she finds the source of what she wants to say, walking to and from work or to the grocery store, and especially in the summer, when the moon is out in the afternoon, poems happen. She writes them on an app and records them, listening to the drafts as she walks and making edits. Observing the gentrification of the borough, she says, is like having a front row seat to what happens when the city decides the, quote, new neighbors are worth caring about. Even though she thinks of herself as a persistent and epic worrier, she says, most of her days are good. She's a secret optimist. Good days involve waking to hilariously crazy texts from good friends, or days they just photobomb each other pictures of Billy Collins. She said this circa 2014, so I don't know if there's been an update to any of this or if Billy Collins still works. Probably he still works. Good days are also when she sees New Yorkers in their smallest acts of kindness, like giving up their seats on trains or helping mothers carry their strollers up the stairs. Though, she says, as I get older and more contentious, good days are not enough. I want better days, days with no Michael Browns, Eric Garners, or Renisha McBrides. Amen to that. Give a warm virtual welcome to Hafizah Jeter.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's a bit jarring to hear your 2014 self without warning, Jace.
Yeah, thought you'd enjoy that.
Speaking from a world that doesn't exist anymore. Whew. Thank you all for coming. I'm so glad to be reading here with Ricky and Tarfia. And, you know, the one good thing about quarantine is in the real world, none of us would have actually left our house to come to this reading because of the snow. And then we're all depressed because of the world. But we're at home now. So I'm going to read a few poems and thank you again. Naming ceremony. My father, who spends most of his days painting pictures, says coming home to my mother stroking out was like walking in on an affair. Bending, he demonstrates how an aneurysm hugged her to her knees. Over and over, my father draws a loss so big it is itself an inception, a story he knows better than the day his daughters were born. Every retelling different, bluer than redder, his memory bruising the neck of whomever he can will to listen. His heart is strong. He has the receipts, a scar on his breast that have cleaned like a smudge on a window. Over and over, my father draws me a picture of the crescent moon fishhooking her hospital room. He loses the story for the pleasure of finding it, his tongue the builder of a maze. I can tell you our best days weren't glad. He's a history whittled down to this single story. In my version, when her mind blew, boys I barely knew played Beirut, cans of Paps crushed against their shoulders, white balls flicking into crimson solo cups, the night lost to the drawl of a far gone gurney. Hold on a second. Jason, I'm gonna pin your face that I see because I'm like reading the work every time I look up. There we go. Fajr. Disease my mother buried like a baby. Days slept away, blinds drawn. My father's forgotten Baptist prayers from behind the bedroom wall, while my sister and I drew dream catchers, strings turned hangman. In the Ohio dark, coyotes nuzzled the neck of a swan, the sun and the sky and the blood. Days later, my mother jail sprung, mourning returning her Fajr. My sister and I, light in our Catholic school uniforms, sneaking out to poke the swan's pregnant body, curious the shape death would take, and wanting to prove small women could be kings. Behind us, my mother shuffling in the house light, a body rearranging its omens. Quiet in both directions, save the blood. It was the year the almonds didn't shell right, and waiting with its own tenderness. All our ghosts have come down from their mountain. We have so many gods, none of them can be trusted. The break-in. When I close my eyes, I see my mother running from one house to another, throwing her fists at neighbors' front doors, begging anyone to call the police. There are times when every spectator is hungry, times a thief takes nothing, leaves you a fool in your inventory, how one trespass could make all others suddenly visible. My mother counted her jewelry and called overseas. My father counted women, afraid one of us would go missing. When I close my eyes, I hear my mother saying, this new country. My cousins exclaiming, Auntie, between the clicking line in their tongues. Tonight, the distance between me, my mother, and Nigeria is like a jaw splashed against a wall. I close my eyes and see my father sulking like a pile of ashes, his hair jet black and kinky, his silence entering 1,000 rooms, then outside trimming hedges, as if home were a land just beyond the lawn, the leaves suddenly black. When I close my eyes, I see my mother, mean for the rest of the day, rawing my back in the tub like she's still doing dishes. Un-American. My mother transfers the last marigold from a pot to a patch of earth that she's carefully bellied out beneath her. The dirt cool as a penny, her fingers tender with the bright petals as she demonstrates how what's uprooted can return to solid ground. Her colonial English, helpless against her native tongue's prayers. Allahu Akbar, my mother says as casually as she says my name. The wind, warmer than the water from her morning wudu, continues its pilgrimage east, a steady stream of fireworks chasing it in the distance. My mother looks at me all shine, her dreams quietly wild in her garden. She says the rain can do in Nigeria what no sun will ever do here in South Carolina. Her shadow, my only relief from the Confederate heat. High noon, work done, my mother settles in on the front porch, where my father swallows the landscape in his hands. Leaning over his shoulder, she watches him sketch another promise, his wife and last child, digging in the garden, our likenesses figurines forever in a charcoal amber. In his mind, my father is always building shelter, the spirits that haunt him like mice in the walls. Oranges for Christmas, a single pair of khakis to last all year. His mother on her knees, Murphy oiling a white woman's Alabama home. The heat licks the corners of my father's sketchbook to a curl. He draws God's shadow right down to the horns. In the garden, the bees burn their tongues on sprouting chili peppers, turning the honey mad. Fireworks splash against my parents' American dream, a switch that turns all their ghosts on. Children prowl the streets with sparklers in hand, impatient for the holiday to dusk. I look for the ones like me and my sister who, not born in this country, can never be president. My sister upstairs, asleep in the relief of this independence. Returned from college, she still never shed the gait of our barely remembered home country. My longing could drive a car. Citizen I am to our parents' wounds, my sisters and my blood, the scar healed between them. Half of us never owned, half Southern lynched, strange fruit. Watch as I pull the slave out of me. How un-American to wear the names of what they fled. My grass-stained knees pledge allegiance to a country that belongs to no one I love. Testimony. I'm going to skip this one, Jason. Okay, thanks. Testimony for Sandra Bland. After the miscarriage, she moved to Waller County, wearing the ghost of motherhood and wanting to make old wounds foreign. In my bedroom, I read aloud the list of her contusions, watched an officer drag her from her car over and over again, as if the humiliations would never be done. There were typos in her autopsy report, the words, no signs of struggle. I thought, her body is my body, is a church set fire, is a toil that makes the land, a jail cell, light as a paper bag, the sound my father makes when, after so many years, he says my mother's name. 28, and they split her open, where slaves grew cotton at the banks of the Brazos, and students at Prairie View A&M can barely vote, and laid her bare, a coroner's wishbone carved in her chest. In Waller County, they still segregate their cemeteries, name some murders suicide. They fire their police chief, vote him sheriff. Alabama parable. My father leans down the barrel of a shotgun house and looks in both directions. At one end, my great-grandfather is leaking like smoke from my aunt's room, where in her body he has left the smell of fire. At the other end, my grandmother, Gussie May, a bull reluctantly bound to her matador. It is barely a secret that this man is the one thing all the women in my family have in common. My father calls it a night so dark, the dark could have been broken. Teaches me the hardest thing is to be loved by a woman you can't protect. My father looks down the barrel of a shotgun house, sees in my mother, hurt like prayer, is a kneeling position, sees that fearing the wrath of God can make you name any angry man king. He still hesitates during a storm because once upon a time, thunder meant the Lord was working. Warns his girls to recognize the certain mole that marks men, willing to pay for moonshine but never rent. Says to go for the knees, throat, eyes. He moves like his whole life depends on superstition, sleeps like he's listening for the creaking door, the smoke signals, the witnesses to my aunt's fires. 72 and tired of keeping secrets. Every Christmas, my father gifts me another, each an heirloom wrapped tightly in his mouth. Lesson 1, there's no God in Alabama. Lesson 2, where the road forks between faith and survival. Lesson 3, no, my grandmother did the best she could. The kill shot, to leave a wounded thing with its heart still beating. Testimony for Eric Garner. Daylight and they dug their fingers into my rectum. Was it intimacy? Was it search? Was it seizure? Bystander footage, marker 433. I become a broken bridge, a wound beneath the belly of a city wolf. Judge, they censor the air and I see my children's faces. This love is blue collar work, this exile heritage. I don't regret the kings and queens I've made, though police keep fucking up. keep kicking down the door inside me. Master's tools steady, trying to burn our cribs down. My children search mirrors for suspicious activity. Marker 440, the hourglass imitates me. Judge, the wolves, they multiply. So intimate come marker 503, their skin takes custody, my breath away. My brother-in-law recites the takbir. In the revolving door of my sister's apartment, my brother-in-law kneels east, palms the Quran, searching for Mecca. Feet washed, he crosses arms over chest, drowning the days as heavy stones in supplication. My sister, confusing devotion with taking him back, bows by his side. It is a sight that makes my knees buckle, so beautiful and familiar to the days I spent prostrate, mimicking the rakat of our mother's morning prayers, the beads of her misbah squeezed tightly between my fingers as I sung the 99 names of Allah. The first time my brother-in-law leaves, his shadow in the bed sheets is what my sister deciphers her swollen belly across. The second time, she comes to sleep at my house, their new son at her nipple like a hooked fish. It is winter in Chicago. My brother-in-law, having shattered every syllable between them, turned silence into metaphor. My sister prays towards the God of our mother and our memories, a God I hope would rather throw away a miracle than bend an ear towards the wishes of a father who has weaponized leaving. My sister looks out into her life, cooled by the breeze of a door slamming, a man who only looks back when returning. My brother-in-law is home again. I cradle their son in my arms so they can pray. Enough history between us that my nephew comes quickly, reaches towards my chest as if searching for my sister's residue. His eyes so new, they are my prayer. With my nephew in my arms, the only thing between Allah and me are two cans and a string. My brother-in-law's need, a valley, my sister's a mirror. With his eyes wide open, my brother-in-law raises both hands and recites the takbir, the storm in him quelling to a melody. And already I know the next time he leaves, my sister will invite him back into her body, her temperature just beginning to drop after carrying the weight of 2 heartbeats. I'm going to read 2 more. And thank you everyone for coming. Testimony from Michael Brown. For hours I lay there, sun at my back, my blood running a country mile between the pavement and the crown of my head. Officer, no ambulance ever came. It took a long time to cover my body. There are politics to death, and here politics performs its own autopsies. My aunties say things like, boy big, black as you. Then the prosecution rests. My neighbors never do. They lose sleep as the National Guard parades down Canfield. I heard my blood was barely dry. I heard there were soldiers beating their shields like war cries. My boys holding hands through the tear gas. Heard my mother wander the streets, her body trembling between a prayer and a fist. I heard a rumor about riots got started. Officer, I heard that after so much blood, the ground develops a taste for it. Ida. And thank you again, everyone. Ida. Only when the surgeon approaches does my father stop crying. His heart sputtering, spent. The anesthesia along begged for reprieve from being a layman in the morning rooms of woman. 6 weeks my mother's been gone, and the surgeon drags his fingers across my father's chest, explaining how 3 calf vessels can rescue the heart. Already gowned, my father listened ambivalently, 1,000 miles from those first nights where he lay side by side with his grown daughter in his wife's bed, the 2 of us desperate to keep the other breathing. In the morning, he washed dishes, I dried, together slowly domesticating our suffering, both unsure if his fatherhood could stand up in the light. From his hospital gurney, my father gazes at me as though staring from across a fog-covered lake. We are twins, afraid to be separated. Years later, when I think of my father, nurses wheeling him down that white corridor, the growing distance between us making his body smaller, then smaller, I will recognize in us the rescuer's dilemma and the drowning man flailing out at sea. My desire to be the savior, then the choice, him or me. Thank you.
Damn, thank you, Hafizah. I'm glad you ended with that last poem, because when I read that poem in your book, I was just like, damn. It's just like, man, it's like hardcore. I was like, that is hardcore. Him or me. It's an amazing book. I forgot after Ricky's reading to hold up I have these books. This is a beautiful cover that you're with a painting from your father. Yes.
Yeah, it's my mother 9 months pregnant with my sister.
Yeah, it's an amazing painting, which makes for an amazing book cover. Buy the book. This is Ricardo's book, The Life Assignment. Also a beautiful cover, 4-way. At the end of the Q&A, I will share some links. I'm sure you all know how to use the internet, but if you don't, I will show you some places where you could purchase these books. I might as well preview our last reader, Tarfia. This is her second book, her most recent one, Register of Illuminated Villages. First book is called Seam, which also has a beautiful, they all have beautiful covers. So it's really not only great to read the poems, but to look at the poems and to look at the book covers, I should have said. Okay, our final reader of the evening is Tarfia Faizullah. Born in Brooklyn and raised in West Texas, Tarfia Faizullah is the author of 2 poetry collections, Registers of Illuminated Villages, which I just showed you, published by Grey Wolf in 2018, and Seam, winner of the Crab Orchard Series in Poetry First Book Award and published by Southern Illinois University Press in 2014. She is the recipient of a Fulbright Fellowship, a Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Prize, scholarships from the Bread Loaf Writers Conference and C1E Writers Conference, and fellowships from Kundiman, the Kenyon Review Writers Workshop, and Vermont Studio Center, among other awards. In 2016, Faizullah was recognized by Harvard Law School as one of 50 women inspiring change. She is a 2019 United States Artist Fellow and currently lives in Dallas, Texas. But for her, home is anywhere that's true. She loves her birthplace of Brooklyn for how she feels both in the world and hidden away from it there. Like, I could be as far or as near to myself as I wanted, she says, if I wanted. She likes reading and writing on the couches in the random apartments of friends she stays with, and the little greasy pizza slices on the corner where you can get a perfectly hot slice. More importantly, she celebrates the sin of bacon. She writes after Whitman, in our little Mad Lib that we do in our Poet of the Week interviews, what I can fry harem strips of in a pan, you should consume too. For every strip of sacrilegious deliciousness belongs to me as good as it belongs to you. A good day, Faizullah says, besides including bacon, is one where I am really present and notice everything. A day where my imagination and curiosity about life don't get in the way of me living it. When asked, why Brooklyn? She says, because of you. Give a warm welcome to our third and final reader, Tarfia Faizullah.
Hi, y'all. It's good to be here. I have a bacon update. I have a pork update. I haven't eaten pork in a really, really long time. And it happened kind of naturally. I grew up Muslim, and so for years I was sort of defiantly eating pork and bacon and talking about it a lot. And then a few years ago, I just kind of stopped. So
What kind
haven't
of
had
update is
bacon.
that, Tarfia?
I know.
That's
I
an
know.
anti-update.
I know, right?
I
What can
miss
I say?
bacon so much. My wife is vegan, so
Oh man.
between you and me, I really miss bacon.
I won't tell her. I promise I won't.
Yeah.
It's really good to be here with y'all tonight. Thanks so much for having me. And it's an honor to read with Ricky and Hafizah, such extraordinary poets. I'm going to read from a new book in progress that's coming out with Haymarket in 2022 or 2023. I can't remember, but shout out to my editor there, Maya Marshall. And so this piece that I'm going to read, I guess, is meant to be read, I think, as one long sequence, but some of the sections do have titles, but you won't see the titles up top. You'll see them after certain sections, and I'm not going to read the titles, but because of this screen share technology, you should be able to see them. And I think that's all I'm going to say about it, except that the title, Alien of Extraordinary Ability, is an actual visa classification from U.S. Immigration Services. And it is meant specifically it's meant to be a priority visa for individuals who have demonstrated an extraordinary abilities in a number of fields, including the arts. And it got me thinking a lot about how much we feel we need to prove ourselves and why. So this is from Alien of Extraordinary Ability. Let's begin. Why do you want this visa? Home. Why this country? The gathering, the well-accommodated individuals. What are your plans here? Everyone likes sweet stuff sometimes. Ice cream tea, coffee caramel, to sit, sweet people, to listen, a same sweet song, a life hammock, to arrive, to drive past ships in the life of night, to be a star seer, to build a spaceship out of the years named solace. What is your name? I ash on my granite heart. I stub a smoke out on my granite heart. This nightly for weeks. My granite heart grows a thick layer of ash. I do not notice until I do. I tip my granite heart into the sink. I rinse my granite heart with lavender hand soap. I scrub my granite heart. There is more than one burn mark. I touch each faint, dull trace. I turn away. I leave my granite heart to soak. Personal ornaments, collared discs, scepters and early imagery, Neolithic axes of the culture, blades, dagger axes, arrowheads, and knives, serrated discs, ceremonial blades, serrated and axes, handles, animal heads and masks, dragons, fish, birds, naturalistic animals, insects, surface decoration, dish with coiled bird and dragon interlacery, shroud, plaque. This is a museum. I am making a list to keep thoughts of you at bay. So it is to hold a conversation with idea you, i.e., your absence. I.e., be my young wearing a gold chain. I'll decorate our wedding night with flower garlands and blue curtain drape. Okay, let's begin. The music lesson, the family concert, give rise to the interior of, fly across the world and see fishing boats, a calm, fishing and estuary, landscape, the ruins of river landscape, a view of two cows and young bull beside a fence, a meadow, the watermill, the great red roof, be our own landscapal travelers. See a boy blowing a firebrand, an enchantress. See everywhere a battle between the gods and the giants. So be an artist wearing a capitalist's pajamas. So be a capitalist unbuttoning an artist's shirt. So be perpetually an orange lion in a suit saying shh, head of a bearded man, an open half door. So do what we said we weren't going to do. One day I'll give you all February, Russian doll style. Ek la cholo, ek la cholo, ek la cholo re. A mortifying ordeal to be seen. There was a window. Those evenings, after a day daring discipline, I'd stare at the window from my little landing across the way and the dogwood tree. My thoughts were a new species of firefly, undiscovered as of yet. The window belonged to other occupants, but I didn't care who they were, i.e., it wasn't my window, i.e., economy and society. But I felt a kinship with it. The dogwood silhouette rescued the window from being a plain old pane of glass. A specific leaf would sway, and at twilight at that. That leaf took on a worldly density, as if inked. Like a painting? No, a summons. As if the window was an oracle, an opening to a wild where we could be ourselves for a spell. Oof, the largeness of feeling window gave as I gazed at her from my still little life. The glossy blackness of her leaf, window, she was me, her branch, her tree, wind, light rain, Texas, 2020, and there she was, what I still am, the child of an alien. I can't tell you why I couldn't stop staring at that window, a kitchen window of all things. Mercy, it was or wasn't a window. It's the shoebox my cousin kept her hand-fashioned dolls in. Bula Apu, what I called her, not her real name. It's the screen I slumped before to wade worn and wide emails. I didn't fall behind, but politely and discreetly apart. Dogwood, window, the wasps repurposing the arm of that plastic wicker chair into a home. The pair of mockingbirds alighting so near, I felt, I swear, on the inside, the gentleness of their feathers. Imagine an ordinary afternoon. Some harm had occurred. I hadn't noticed until after, i.e., lately, I was alive and staring. Recovery was a gentle and jagged reintroduction to my own wonder and curiosity. Where had she been? I, along with her red flower dress, the one whose hem skimmed my thighs so expertly. I can see it so clearly still. The window my gaze made of the wars that went on, on, on. All that thunder, a frequent stab of lighting. They returned eventually. My two minds, I mean, their limpid and lean logics. Mercy. Mercy and time is exactly what I learned from a window. Bottle, plate, 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 vase, plate, vase, dish, teapot, teapot, platter, water jug, coffee pot, tureen. Dear beast, you only respond to marrow scooped clean. Here is your bread, sliced into neat, warm ovals. You stare. I touch your silk snout. We shiver. Some nights I let you kiss abruptly through the mask. You pant. I whisper, it's impossible. I make you anyway. Is it that you have nowhere to go? No. Your family loves you. But here you are the only monster, the last and first star, the one in the clan who won't stay put. Tonight, like other nights, you arrive when you said you wouldn't. You cannot always afford me. I do not always have what you lope about looking for. Only we know how this works. Be still. It isn't so easy to keep the leash buckled to its collar. So good, this gallery, Idea you says. Yes, it is quite the door to 1,000 years ago. Shh, says our future child. Get the door. The wall opens. Here we are. Now see the fields, sun and moon. Can you see the other families? Our family understands keyless entry and the door diaspora closes. So it is to touch the idea of you. No touching the art, security says. Okay, I say, okay, and part the regions of my torso. It's then I learned security is blind to my mockingbird inside. No touching the heart, security says. Okay, I say, okay, and part the pillars of darkness. Now walk towards flowering cherry and autumn maples, mockingbird commands. Do it, alone. Ready, set, goa. A chakma memory. Dyed fabric drapes a bridge. Now spell matriarchy, mockingbird commands. L-O-V-E. E-V-O-L-V-E. The first word you learned in the enemy's language, Idea you reminds. A savage, angry joy takes hold. Idea you disappears. I leave the gallery or linger. I become an etching, window shopping, allusions to the sea, light palette, ewer and basin, Cupid and Psyche. I once was and will never again be virgin and child, the rape of by. Are you also trying to understand what it is to be the master? Thanks, y'all.
Okay, thank you very much, Tarfia. That was incredible. What a pleasure to be able to experience that new work. I've been reading in fact, I just finished your last book. I finally read your last book. So I've been in the past, I guess. It's no longer the most recent book. Now you've got this amazing new project that you're working on. Yeah, it was it was also cool to just scroll through that as you were reading it, because I've never seen a text like that. So that was a fun experience. Emily Blair is putting the links to the poet's most recent books in the chat if you want to check that out, or check them out, I should say. I'm going to share my screen again so you can see them. I mean, again, I'm pretty sure you know how to use the internet. This is Tarfia's most recent book with Grey Wolf. You see this, again, really beautiful cover. One of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen, really. Tarfiyah's Hafizah's Un-American, with this beautiful painting by her father, and Ricardo Alberto Maldonado's life assignment with 4-Way Books. Check them out. They've got raves. I'm sure they would appreciate it if you buy the books, and I'm sure the next time they see you, they would be happy to sign them. This is our website, brooklynpoets.org. You can find out more about our reading series. I'm basically talking now, so if you have questions, you can ask them in the Q&A. We do have time for a Q&A now with the three poets, about 20 minutes. So if you have a question, either for one of the readers or all three, just type them into the Q&A. Looks like I've got one so far from Joanne Mazuela, but keep them coming. You can ask the questions as we're talking. If you want to check out a little preview of our next reading, which we just posted on our website, it's pretty great. Thursday, April 29th, Arisa White, John Murillo, and Reginald Dwayne Betts. I'm sure many of you in the audience know these three poets. Couldn't be more excited about that one. So check it out. We do have a few workshops that are still open for registration. We have a good problem. Many of them have sold out. 12, you see right here, 12 of the 15 have sold out, but there's still room in 3 workshops with Gregory Crosby, Daryl Alejandro Holmes, and Joshua Megan. So check that out if you're interested in taking a workshop. There's still time. If you're a member, you get $25 off. You see Ricky right here. It's Poet of the Week. This is what the Poet of the Week feature looks like. We feature a poem by the poet, either a poem from their most recent book usually, or an unpublished poem. And we have an interview with them with this sort of set template of questions that we ask other poets about their work, about Brooklyn, about other poets, about their mentors. So usually these interviews are a good way for the poets to show love to other poets in the community. So check it out. Ricky's interview, I have to say, made me really nostalgic and a little sad. Made me miss Brooklyn a lot. I recently moved upstate to Beacon and haven't honestly really missed Brooklyn just because we haven't really been out in the world for so long. But reading this interview really made me miss the place. Okay, so I still only got one question in the Q&A. If that's it, I'll ask this question and I'll probably be able to think of another one on my own. Staff, if you got a question, now would be a great time to enter it in the Q&A since no one else has asked one yet. But this question comes from Joanne Mazuela. For all of the readers tonight, let me stop sharing my screen actually. A mother, a father, a child of aliens appears in these poems. What is your relationship to little you, like little - you, and poetry as a place where childhood can be kept intact? So if you didn't catch all that, I would just click on the Q&A button. You'll see it typed out. Mother, father, a child of aliens appears in these poems. What is your relationship to little you, and poetry as a place where childhood can be kept intact? So
I can start. I think, I will say, like, not to be a downer, but I think that because this is America, I don't think that this is a place childhood can be kept intact. At least, I don't think for anyone who is a reader here. But I think that poetry is a place where one can make sense of what has happened, can make sense of, like, find truth among all the lies, because I think in many ways this country is built off of war, off of racial capitalism, and so it's not really built off of anything that is intended to promote life. So I think poetry is a way, like all art, to like live in opposition and to create a place of hope, which I think is like, that is like how you keep a childhood intact, is like you keep hope in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know exactly how to answer this question because, right, so it has its linguistic challenges for me. If I were to think of my childhood in Spanish, it would be very different from me thinking about my childhood in English. Because if I were to be honest, and if we were to be honest about the US's history with Puerto Rico, where technically if you live on the island, you are considered foreign in a domestic sense, right? So like there's this whole baggage of that comes with the territory, literally. And so I started writing poetry in English. I just hear also that there's difficulty with my headphones, so I'm gonna do that. Is that better? I guess so. I started writing poetry in English and then after Maria. But I think actually, to be honest, it was before, right after Pulse, when I started writing in Spanish. My the way in which I saw myself as a poet and as a human being changed dramatically. And so um, I don't know how I engaged with my childhood other than I feel like I was frequently confused by the world, by the language of the world and the mechanisms of the world, and I engage with them differently when I write in either language.
I just feel really tenderly about this question, and hearing Hafizah and Ricky, y'all's responses makes me wish that I could give like our three younger selves, like small selves, some kind of, I don't know, Muppet. Do y'all remember like the Muppets Playroom or whatever? Like some space where you could kind of like be yourself, but also check in on each other. That would be really dope. A little while ago, I think a couple of years ago, I started saying to my friends, I just want to be small again. And I meant it, I think, on a few different levels. I meant it as kind of like, in some ways, as like a writer in the world who's, you know, has books out and etc. And also as somebody who has been a lifelong reader and private writer, and wanting to have some kind of space that felt that way again, that was both safe and felt like awe and wonder were possibilities there. And and then increasingly, I think writing has become a space where um, it's about facing it. It's not about escaping anymore. And so thinking back to what Hafizah was saying, it does feel a little bit like that space feels compromised, but in a way that feels kind of, I don't like using words like necessary or important, but feels like if it wasn't for that space where I could face something difficult, but also escape from something difficult. I want to preserve that small person who still felt like you could play in that space. And sometimes I don't always feel like I can, but I like the question a lot because it makes me think of wanting to try harder to preserve that little me who wanted to play and wanted some gladness in that space.
Okay, great answers, everyone. Tarfia, is that a stuffed unicorn you're holding?
Hell yeah. This is Gabo, named for Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
That's great. I wish
Yeah.
we could see. I wish we could see Gabo at every reading. Okay, we have
You
some.
might.
We have a few more questions. This one comes from Seth Leeper. There's a spiritualism that runs through all three of your work. I'm curious to what extent your work is informed by spirituality, and whether you see poetry as a tool to interrogate it, deepen it, or both.
I can jump in because I just had this conversation with my therapist. I grew up as a practicing Catholic. I even got my confirmation, or did my confirmation. I don't even know how to say that in English, right? Whatever the proper idiomatic expression is, nor do I care. And I guess that answers the question, right? I feel like for me, like the List poem is a great example of it's very hard for me to conceive of a world where something like God exists and then the border or lynchings or slavery or what's happening now in Texas and or happen in Puerto Rico. I mean, I could keep listing these, and I feel like when I wrote that poem, I remember thinking, "This is." I hope, if nothing, it points to a specific 4-year period that's been accentuating histories, right? Like we can deal with this, but no, of course that's silly. So I don't know. I feel like God is very much a construct we create to allow things like love to have weight. And I think I don't know. So I'm torn, but to answer your question, I would say yeah. Challenge, interrogate, maybe render it useless, but maybe also find meaning in it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, like spirituality and religion aren't something that like I want to use the word interrogate for me versus like they're more of the atmosphere. Like growing up, like my household was like run by my mother, so it was like a Nigerian Muslim household. Like my father had like given up on God, but had grown up like Southern Baptist, like and like just like people like catching the spirit, speaking in tongues. And then I went to like a Catholic all girl school for first to ninth grade, and so for me, like I guess like my take on God is like I believe in a God that doesn't care if I believe in them or not. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like they're still moving. But I think that what makes me the most curious about religion that I try to like if I interrogate is like the thing that brought so much peace is the thing that this country uses to like create war and create conflict, especially with Islam. I think that like it is just like the way the actual image that this country puts out compared to what is the actual reality is it's as close to what you can see in like the difference in like what blackness is and what is portrayed it as. And so I think that like I'm interested in like essentially what ghosts you can see in this country when like God is brown.
I'm going to talk about dating apps for like 10 seconds in response to this question, because I was just telling a dude I'm talking to on a dating app, I was complaining to him about people who put spiritual but not religious as an option on their dating app profile. In part because I think, I want to know specifics, and I'm like, that's not really an answer in a way, because I'm sort of in that market anyway. I want to know what somebody's sort of family of origin or cultural situation is, which is oftentimes what I think there's like a Venn diagram of culture and religion that I think is totally separate from spirituality, which I think of as a more private relationship with whatever. But I think spirituality is really individual, whereas religion oftentimes I think becomes like a communal affair, or sort of like, and it's connected to the state, as y'all are saying, and it's really fraught and complicated. And I don't have any like deeper important thoughts about this, unfortunately, except that, I mean, I think it's an ongoing thing that we all think about, but I think to tie it to poetry specifically, I just think poetry is a space where you can grapple with questions of mystery and chaos. And when I think about either spirituality or religion, I think about those ideas.
Okay, well, brilliant answers. Spiritual but not religious. Yeah, don't date that person. I'm gonna try to get to as many of these questions as possible. I might dovetail a couple together. This one seems relevant. That is in the chat from Maya Lewis. What does your poetry practice look like now compared to the before times?
Was that the answer? All of her silence.
I can jump in if that's okay with the two of you.
Yeah.
So I was writing poetry at the start of the pandemic. In fact, for the first 15 weeks, I wrote a poem each week. And I don't know how I feel about them, other than because it felt like such a the pandemic was, and it's still pretty awful, and it struck New York pretty awfully, right? And we still see the numbers, and a lot of people died. But because I was here in Bed-Stuy, like it was an auditory experience most of the time, because I could hear the sirens at all times. And when I look at those poems, it feels very like those poems are really interested in sound. I haven't written many poems after that, other than I found the title for my next book, and I'm sort of like thinking about poems I should write for it. But I'm also working on a memoir, so I feel like um, this doesn't feel like pandemic specific, right? I also feel like I feel very strange about talking about craft when so many people are dying. Right? It's like poetry is not really sustaining me in that way. But I guess that's it.
I mean, I feel like I just wrote a book of poetry, so y'all aren't getting anything for another decade. I mean, I haven't really been writing any poems. I don't even know what to write about now. Like my whole life is in there. And now we're in quarantine. So I don't know when I'm gonna write poems again. I've been like thinking about it, but I've mainly been working on nonfiction and fiction and writing other stuff. But like I've been like, but I've been writing every day, so it's good.
I don't know. I'm so sad that there's like a before and after. You know, like that there's like a before times and after times, and I don't know. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Okay. Good answers. I'm going to try to combine two. Rada asks if you would speak about line structure choices. I love these super formal technical questions. Line structure choices is a way to support the theme and intent of your poems. And Renee, one of our staff members, also had a question about form and how you think of form and use it as a tool.
I mean, I think like for me, I hate form. Like form is like math to me. I'm like not doing it. Like, but I kind of focus on the line break. I feel like for me, like the line break is where I can like exercise like my crazy need for control. Because I just feel like line breaks are like magic tricks. A poem can be like 40 different poems because of a line break. You know, it's like every line becomes a choose your own ending, and I just like love what they can do with surprise. I think like that's like for me like why like Jean Valentine was one of my favorite poets, because I just felt like what she could do with a line break. And I think probably the most famous poem, Door in the Mountain, is one of like her best with line breaks. And so I think it just shows that like the magic that can just happen with like in that one moment, you know? So for me, it's really the line break.
Yeah, I think you develop an intuition as to where you feel like your poem needs to break. But other than that, I feel like I find form in that sense like utterly mystifying and perhaps generative as a result. So, of course, it helps reading other people's work and seeing where they decide to pause. But I feel like as a reader, and a writer, you develop an intuition and you just pursue that. You know.
I think Hafizah and Ricky have this one covered. I guess I just want to add that I've always thought it was cool that a pantoum is Malaysian, and especially because it's a poem that relies on repetition, repeating lines, and so I sometimes think about the roots of that, how this like very old form. There's some logic in us still grappling with forms that deal with things like repetition because of things like the recurrence of memory or the way that things recur naturally because we're on a planet that is like going in circles, spinning through space or whatever. So, yeah.
Okay, great answers. This one, people always send the biggest questions towards the end of the Q&A. I'm gonna try to get them in if I can. This one is from Sarah Joy Marquez. First, big thanks to each of you for your work and your generosity in sharing with us. I'm thinking about poetry as translation and wondering, do you distinguish between the ways in which you speak to and or of family, country, self in your work versus the way that you engage them in your life off the page? How are those experiences different or the same for you?
Sarah, that's a question.
Like Sarah would ask the question twice.
The answer is wow. The answer is right. Like I don't know, and I feel like that's how it works, right? I again back to my answer to the first question. Like now, I live in another country, but that's not true because Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but it feels culturally and emotionally another country, and so I feel like it's self-imposed exile. or exile period, full self-imposed. And so home feels bigger, drafty to me, since I only visit twice a year, and I haven't been there in a year due to the pandemic. So I don't know what else to add other than like perhaps you and I should text and dig into this question. But I'm really grateful you asked it.
So the question is like how we engage with them, with like our family and country on and off the page, right? I mean, like I'm not engaging with my writing with anybody that I'm writing about. Like if my sister wanted to talk about a poem that I wrote about her, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here, you know? I'd be like, I don't know you. For me, I think it's like I consider them just like very separate spaces. Like I don't think that I can like, I think like the me has to just be completely separate from the work. Otherwise I'll just go crazy because I'm a very, very private person. And so like having to tell anybody anything at all, I think is like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So I just try to just like really keep it separate because it will drive you crazy, you know? Like I wanted to be a writer, so like I have to like spill it. But I will say I do try to be very conscious about like of what I'm saying, why, because we live in a country that just like that loves our pain. And so, you know, I try to be careful with spectacle, and I do think a lot about like ethics, you know, like for example, like the testimony poems that I wrote, like, you know, I have to be very careful with those because like these are people whose families are still alive, you know. And so I think I try to be responsible in the best way I can, because like I understand it could have been happened a different way where like somebody else in my family could have been the writer and putting my shit on blast. So try to be nice.
I was just talking to my mom about, so Bula Apu, who is mentioned in one of the poems I read tonight. Apu means big sister in Bangla. So it's an honorary and it's not her actual name. But anyway, so she came up just casually in conversation because she lives here in Dallas. And I was like, oh, I just put Bula Apu in a poem. And mom was like, that's nice. And that's kind of the extent of it. And sometimes my mom reads my poems and afterwards she'll say something like, I wish I could read something of yours that I actually understood. So I feel sort of like in a way like saved by the fact that I'm in this kind of like niche art form that, you know, like my family doesn't necessarily completely understand anyway. But I agree with, you know, like what y'all have already said, in that I think it's just sometimes it's about intentionality. And other times I think about Lynn Haginian writing in her book, My Life. All families have stories, not all families have storytellers. And I just happen to be one of those people who wants to write the shit down. So I do. And sometimes I get it wrong, like 100 Bells, which is a poem that features my family pretty strongly in it. But I've kind of taken pains to try to protect them in a way by writing essays, like an essay called Against Explanation, in which I was sort of like, you shouldn't assume that the speaker of the poem is the person who has written the poem. But I don't read that poem aloud anymore. I kind of refuse to. I don't think I ever will again. And so I think that sometimes, even if there are poems in which my family is dealt with in a sensitive manner, I'm careful about when and how I share it.
Interesting. Thanks for those answers. I think I'm going to try to get two more in. This one comes from Jude, or Jade, I think is how it's pronounced according to the instructions. This one's specifically for Hafizah. I'm also Nigerian American. It's incredible to see your skill in putting your past on display. At times, I don't know whether to write something my audience would like or spell out my feelings and memories on paper and present them. I'm a pretty positive person, and I see my audience connect with more of my lighter pieces. Would you attribute your success in writing to your unapologetic style? So I guess he's asking, is it better to be unapologetic or to be light and try to give the audience what they want?
I mean, I think the best thing that you can do is like tell the truth in the way you have it in you to tell it. Um, like all of my generally all of my poems are sad. I don't write funny poems. Like I'm funny in my life, but like I'm doing other work on the page, and I just think that like writing is so hard. So to be performing it for other people, you know, like we're not actors in this. Like there's no one else writing the script for us, and so I think you have to like tell the truth and what that means to you, especially because like we've spent the last 4 years in lies, and that hasn't been quite helpful to anyone. And I think that like I always think about like literature, especially like poets and novelists and nonfiction people, like we are the other record, because if you look at the history books are why this world is like this, because it's full of lies and erasures. And so I think it's just really important for people to tell their stories, because like every time we tell our stories, it's a correction of a historical record. And so what is it that you want to be the correction, like the story or the joke? And I think just focusing on that.
All right, great answer. Okay, last question. This one is for all of you from Joe. I think this is a good place to end on. If I couldn't get to your question, I apologize. We're up against our time limit. This is from Joe, our events manager. She always likes to ask what you all wanted to be when you were kids. What did you want to be when you grew up? Now that you're grown up, we'll see if those dreams have been realized or they've been crushed.
A writer in a pandemic. Just kidding for the last part. But I mean, I always wanted to be a writer. And like, because like my father is a visual artist by profession, like I was never told no, for better or worse. So yeah, but I'm living the dream.
I wanted to be a unicorn named Gabriel Garcia Marquez. But no, I wanted to be a doctor. But also I wanted to be a movie director when I was younger. I would stage movies with my dad's old like camera, the bulky ones you carry up here. It was a dream. And then I got to college and it just made sense. It's how I wanted to see myself and like talk about myself to myself and to others.
I love that. I wanted to be a princess, a ballerina, and an astronaut. And I feel like I've achieved all three dreams, but just metaphorically. So like but I'm cool with that, I'm cool with it being metaphor.
Wow. Great answers. I like that question, Joe. We should ask that at every Q&A. That should be our last question every night. I love your answer, Hafizah. I wanted to be a writer in a pandemic. Oh man. I wanted to be a baseball player when I was a teenager. I don't know if I had anything when I was younger. My parents would have loved your answer, Rick, your first answer. Being a doctor. That's what they wanted me to be. But that dream has failed. Okay, thanks for your questions, everyone. Thanks to all of you who are still here. It feels late, but it's really not that late. This, in fact, I think it's the earliest we've ever ended. So kudos and props to our readers for reading so well, first of all, and also so efficiently. Thanks to my staff. Thanks to Joel and Binyam and Manny from BPL. And thanks, of course, to our three brilliant readers. Please buy their books. Check them out. Binyam just put a link in the chat to follow some stuff that BPL is doing via their social media. Again, if you want to find out more about Brooklyn Poets, you can go to brooklynpoets.org. We would love for you to send us your selfies. If you haven't taken one, take one now. Use portrait mode. Put a unicorn in the foreground or background, whatever you want to do. Put your pet in the foreground. We love the pet pictures. Tarfia, you definitely need to send me a selfie with that unicorn. Also, Hafizah, your background is great. So yeah, take a picture of that, send it to me. Again, our next reading in the Brooklyn Poets reading series is April 29th. We got a little time for that, but if you want to register for it right now, you can click on the link on our website on the reading series page. It's already up. Arisa White, John Murillo, and Reginald Dwayne Betts our next Brooklyn Poets event is coming up in March, on March 8th, our YOP, which is our monthly workshop and open mic. That is always the second Monday of the month. That will be led by one of our teachers, Gregory Crosby, who's leading a workshop on the poetic sequence this spring. There's still room in that workshop if you want to register. That is all I have. I don't know if Joel is still here. Are you still here, Joel? If you want to say any final words, you can.
Joel,
Thanks, everybody.
Joel, when can we browse the library?
Yeah.
The poetry collection.
Come on over tonight. We'll use the skeleton key and get you in.
Excellent.
That sounds fun. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. This was beautiful. I had a good time. Hope you did. And we will see you at our next event. Thanks, Ricky, Hafizah, and Tarfia. Thanks,
you.
Steph. Take it easy. Be safe. Be warm.